there's sort of two questions on everybody's mind right now, which is US-China, because it has such an impact on markets, and on China's domestic economy and this idea of rebalancing. For their sort of turn, have their own framework, which is this idea of dual circulation that you no doubt hearing about. Dual circulation is actually quite an old idea. It's a dual circulation of the idea of dual circulation. It's been around for a few decades itself. It kind of comes back in and out of vogue. And put simply, it's just the idea that China's domestic consumption can be stimulated as a way to insulate China from external shocks. And that's a very polite way of saying that we really want to have our own supply chains and our own things working in case they get shut off by other countries, read, the United States largely. And this has been outlined very clearly in the fifth plenum, which is one of the nice things about working on China, is it outlines very clearly where it wants to go. And so recently they said, this is where the next 5 years will be, this is where the next 15 years will be in the 5-year and 15-year plan. And they see themselves as building these tech supply chains, as really trying to move up the value chain. And they have their own industrial policy. And so there's a number of areas where in 2021, there will be a huge amount of action in these areas. And there'll also be much further growth in them in the next 5 years to come. Probably the key thing we see helping this tension and these contradictions, as the Chinese would put it, between the various goals and how to do it is in carbon. Xi Jinping's zero carbon policy is a game changer. For a long time, we've had broad international consensus on climate change, but it is a classic prisoner's dilemma, whereby it is a collective action problem, whereby if any one large country is not seen as signing on, there's trouble. And so China has done a number of very laudable things on the environment already. And they do it through sending out signals. And if the signal goes out that zero carbon must happen, zero carbon will happen. We're already seeing these lower levels respond to the central level signal. So I think for us, that is more than a seed of hope. I think that is something when we look at 2021 and beyond, we see it as a fundamental driver of actual changing the behavior. Whether that leads itself to, not just in green initiatives bubbling up, green bonds, we're quite bullish on in the finance sector, for example, but also just in giving everyone an exit path from the spiral we're currently in, to slightly mix my metaphors. The other factor that we need to talk about when considering 2021 beyond is the virus. China's healthcare system has had problems for many years, and this has been widely acknowledged by the Chinese government, but it's dealt with the virus very well. That has not been a success in healthcare. It actually was a success in macro governance. When you have 90 million Chinese Communist Party members that all put their sort of shoulder to the wheel, go out, inoculate its citizens, you get an economy that's able to recover more quickly. And that's what we're seeing today. We're seeing so many signs of that throughout China domestically. Travel is up, communications up, confidence is up. All of the signs of a strong recovery are there. I think that the virus will be something that China is able to deal with well because of this macro governance model, whereby as soon as something happens, they shut the city down. And that is giving them the ability to not have to shut the country down. If you think about Australia, where I'm from, places where the economy is more integrated, there's not that ability to sell. There's not a cellular function that allows you to just be like, okay, this city has problems. We're gonna shut it off, and the macro economy can keep growing. That is possible in China, and that's the other really strong driver for 2021 that will allow them to have macro level high growth. The final factor that I want to talk about that kind of ties all these threads together of China 2021 and dual circulation is the idea of supply chains. One of the reasons that is always given for what China's doing is that it's worried about being cut off from international supply chains. But one of the factors that we think that why we're getting bullish on China having a strong 2021 is that its supply chain is very resilient within China. And there is a often underestimated sophistication and technology in Chinese internal supply chains And in Chinese domestic economics, that means that it's very hard to shift production elsewhere.